Alright, so today I'm going to test something I'm calling precoiling. I saw it in Jake Hebenheimer's form, and I think that's the only pro I've seen doing this, and so it just basically means coiling earlier than usual during the run-up. So most pros, they get to the X step, and as they're coming out of the X step, that's when they start coiling. But Jake, he does like an initial right step, and then on the first left step he's already starting to turn his torso and shoulders back, and then gets to the right step, the X step, and going into the brace, and he's already coiled, and so there are fewer things left to do, which was kind of my first thought about why I wanted to test this. It seems like if you get most of the coiling out of the way first, then you can focus on the final bits of timing a little bit more easily. And then, of course, the thought is, well, wouldn't this maybe reduce power if you coiled too early? At first, it kind of seems like that, but the more I thought about it, I didn't really think that should be true. I think what matters most is you've done the same amount of coiling as you normally do, and you have a little bit left over to be dynamic and explosive with. So in the final moments, you get a little bit of an extra coil stretch to explode out of. It's that dynamic part at the end that I think creates the most explosiveness and the total amount of coiling, like range of motion, to unwind. So today I'm going to test it, see if I'm able to hit my normal speeds with a controlled walk up, which is in the low to mid 60s. And that's the thing I'm mostly checking. I don't think this should have much of an impact on anything else.
Homage got the vibes, got the vibes, got the vibes, got the vibes.
I'm about to do my first test with this after having warmed up, and one thing that I think is going to be a little bit weird is normally as I bring my X step forward, I bring my arm, my throwing arm forward with the X step, which is kind of like a uncoiling motion. And it helps me synchronize my timing and remind myself to not start coiling or reaching back yet, because I'm bringing things forward and then start the coil as I'm coming out of the X step. But if I'm already coiled and I have this temptation to bring my arm forward during the X step, I might be undoing some of the coiling that's already there. So we'll see. And then for some possible downsides, first of all, if you're already coiled early into the run up, it's kind of harder to keep an eye on the target. You have to kind of, turn your neck more to do that. So that could be a downside. And then for people who are not used to running up laterally, they may be more tempted, if they're trying to coil early, they may be more tempted to start turning backwards and running backwards, which a lot of people are already tempted to do just because running sideways is not like they're not used to it, and then as soon as they start coiling, it's even weirder to continue running sideways. So then they turn their feet backwards, and you've just now uncoiled. There's no more twisting, no more tension, so harder to get power without just spinning around. All right, first throw.
You're going to see a lot of higher launch angles here, but it's just because I've gotten so used to it from previous tests where I was practicing throwing nose down while still being able to throw high launch angles for, big distance line practice. But it's starting to get a little too easy to accidentally throw higher launch angles, so I'm going to have to work on bringing that down. Taking a look at the last throw I just did, of course there's going to be a lot of differences because Jake is a pro and I'm just getting used to this, but here we can see he pre-coiled a lot more than I did. And then I have the pump forward habit with my X step, which brings my off arm a bit forward, and so then it kind of wants to swing back as I finish coiling, but I had more coiling to finish because I didn't pre-coil as much. And so you can see the habit I was talking about earlier where my off arm swings up away from my body further than I'd like, compared to Jake's. His is much closer to his body already, so it's much easier and faster to bring it in while being explosive. So this didn't immediately help me break that habit, but maybe if I pre-coil more, then I'll be less tempted to bring my off arm up, but likely I'll just have to work on that individually. Maybe I'll test next keeping my off arm hand on my thigh to force myself to keep it closer and see if that does anything.
Second throw, I already got a little bit above 60, so far it's feeling pretty good. So yeah, let's see what happens if I can go a little bit harder.
Next time I'm going to try to do a better job at watching the footage in real time and making improvements, because as I'm editing this, I'm wishing I got more pre-coiling in. And I was watching the footage, but the first thing I notice is, the big difference in my form where it looks like I'm pre-coiling. But once I'm here editing it and looking at it side by side with the example of Jake, I can tell now that I wasn't doing it as much as I would have liked. But this is just the first test, so that's fine.
64, that's actually really good for me. Nose angle, nose angle's a little high, launch angle's a little high, but I'm not focusing too much on those. So that's pretty interesting. Maybe it's helping me since I'm already coiled. In the last moments, I can focus on getting a deeper coil, deeper stretch, more loading in the final moments. All right, so I just hit 65. It's actually been a while since I've hit 65 from a controlled walk up.
Looking back at it now, it looks like my footwork pace is actually in between my walk up and my full run up,
Instead of a full run up. So seems pretty promising. I'm gonna try a full run up, which seems a little weird because my run up form and timing's a little bit different. And instead of just doing a normal X step like this, I kind of do like a hop where both the feet come off the ground at the same time. So I'm not sure how that's gonna feel or work with already being coiled. It might be harder to do, so let's see.
So I pre-coiled even less than the other ones when trying to do my faster run up for the first time. It felt a bit harder to do when having faster footwork and momentum, but this is normally how things are. When I do my full run up and higher power, it's harder to keep changes, and I usually revert more. I'm doing another run up here and I'm thinking about how to pre-coil more, but it's really hard on the run up and especially on the left step. It seems like it'd be a lot easier to do on the next right step because the step kind of swings out in a way that can flow with the coiling, which makes me want to test pre-coiling on the right step. Alright, so here are the overall stats and the stats for each individual throw. So did it turn out how I expected when I was trying to think it through at the start? So I was right about not losing power. It seems like I threw a little bit of a higher average speed than I was expecting compared to my normal form, but I'm going to have to get a new baseline with my normal form to compare this to because it's actually been a while since I've done this with my normal form because I've been doing so many different tests. And then as to whether it made the timing easier later on in the form or not, it's kind of up in the air. It seemed like it did, like with how I was thinking and feeling, but looking at the footage, I was still having to
time the last bit of coiling similar to how I normally do. So I think it was just my muscle memory that was allowing me to do that. And if I didn't have that muscle memory, I would still have some of the same challenges timing wise at that stage of the throw. But if I get better at pre-coiling more so I don't have as much coiling left over, it may still help out with the timing at the end. And in fact, today I feel a little bit more sore in certain areas from the coiling than I'm used to. So there may be something there where the pre-coiling is helping me get a deeper coil, or it's just sore from coiling while running up that I'm not used to. I also think, especially on the faster run-ups, that it would be easier to do the pre-coiling on the right step just before the X step, because on that step you're finishing turning sideways, and that direction of your turning is in the same direction as coiling is, so they could flow together more easily